that's increased as opposed to just getting it down quick and going through straight. And again, big performance difference, especially fighting a fish. Your guides, obviously you know your line goes through there and it's going to create friction. When you've got a big fish on, you don't want friction. Most importantly, you want to eliminate it to create a smooth transition for that guide and that line to go back and forth so you don't lose a fish. That's how it's done. Just put a nice flex, pull out and down just like a fish would when you're fighting it. That's about the angle I'd hold a rod. It looks pretty good. This is another good example to explain high stick real quick and the difference in how to get the most power out of your rod. While fighting a fish, everyone's heard of high sticking. If you have the rod straight up and the fish is close to the boat, you're going to get something like that. You've got no power on a rod that way, and it's the quickest way to break a rod. Now, if you were to lower that angle, bring the rod down more horizontal and parallel with the water, and bend the rod on the fish instead of putting the stick up high, you can see that we got to bend more down the entire blank. We can disperse. I'm pulling just as hard, if not harder, but I'm kind of simulating us putting that rod lower to the water. And you can see we got to bend now through our entire blank, as opposed to up here, it's just bending towards the tip. Our power is going to come from the lower third of our blank. If we have our rod straight up, we're not using any of that. We're just using the tip. You can see the tip is thin and it's going to break. If we lower our rod like that and disperse evenly, if we evenly disperse the power through the rod, you get a lot more power and you don't risk breaking your rod. All right, that spacing looks good. I'm going to go ahead and pull that down and wrap our guides. There's a couple different ways to wrap your guides. I'm going to go over one right now using a thread carriage that comes in your power wrapper. Just place our thread on one of these posts through our tensioning device, and we're good to go. What this is going to do is, by tightening this tensioner, we're going to add tension to our thread, so I don't have to hold it to keep it tight. What that's going to do is allow me to keep my hands free while wrapping or tying off a knot. I personally don't use it. I use my hands, but especially getting started, it might be easier for some of you to use this. Another point to make is I take my shoe off on my right foot, which is the foot that I'm using to control my foot pedal. Just lets me be a little more delicate. All right, all I'm going to do here is take the thread and tape it towards, in the direction I'm wrapping. I'm going to wrap from the guide foot up towards the ring. So from the butt of the rod towards the tip. So I'm just taking my tape, add it to the thread, tape it on the blank, just like so. Okay? Then nice and easy, I'm going to rotate my blank and bring that guide, bring the thread down onto the guide foot, just like so. I like to do it, I mean, it doesn't matter how many times you wrap up here. The less amount of times you wrap up there, the quicker you can take the thread off in the end. But no matter how many times you go around, I like to bring one wrap at least right up here on the guide foot where your ring comes into your foot. And that really helps you secure that guide down there until you have your wraps. I'm just going to bring it down like so. Come out about 3/16 of an inch. And here's where I'm going to actually start my wrap. And what I'm going to do is rotate my blank either by hand or by foot. Another great thing about the power wrapper is whether I want to use the power or not, my rod is totally level. It's in these rod stands where I have no friction. I can spin it very freely by hand. Go nice and slow or fast. And I'm going to bring this thread back onto itself and make a cross, just like that. I'll show you again. This is the whole thing right here. Just wrap the thread around and cross it over itself. Okay? Just like that. And now I'm just going to keep my thread tight against the wraps I just made, putting some pressure down and back. Just like that. And here I'm wrapping by hand, or I can use my foot pedal, which is obviously much quicker. And just let the thread wrap onto the blank by keeping, again, constant pressure down and back. You can see there I had a little too much pressure back, and the thread came back on itself. No problem. Just back it up a little bit. Make sure we're straight. And we can go ahead and keep wrapping. And you can, my personal preference is to have my hand right here guiding the thread. You can also just use a thread carriage and move the thread carriage as you go. Now I'm up against my tape. All I'm going to do is take the tape off my thread. I don't need this piece anymore. I don't need this tape on my guide anymore. This is where it's nice to have the thread tensioner. My hands are free. I don't have to worry about this wrap coming undone. I still, out of habit, will keep my hand on the thread sometimes just to make sure nothing happens. And I'm going to come around to where that tag end is sticking out. Take my razor blade and just one little cut down. It's going to come right off. Don't worry about sawing. Just push it down. It'll come off. You can see we've got some small gaps in here. That's not an issue. We're going to come back with our burnishing tool in a minute and fill in those small gaps. Let's see, we've got one little cross here. Just like that. We're good to go. And we'll wrap the rest of our guide. Then when I get about 3/16 of an inch away from where my wrap's going to stop, right at the base of the guide, I'm going to go ahead and bring in one of my KB quick pull. I designed these little tools. I'm all about making things quick and easy. What it is, we've got 2 loops here. I put the bead on there so when it's laying on your lathe or laying on your table, you can find it real easily. 2 loops. One to put my finger through and pull. The other loop to go under my thread. I'll show it from this side. So I'm just going to put it under my thread like so. And wrap on top of the loop. Now we want the loop to be in the direction of the guide, the direction we're wrapping. So again, all I did was take that KB quick pull, take one of the loop without the bead, put it under the thread, and put it between the thread and the blank, just like that. And now all I'm going to do is wrap at least 5 wraps on top of that. You can get away with 4, but 5 is just a sure thing. There we go. We've got 8 or 10 on that one. Not a problem. And we want to stop before we get all the way up to where these legs come into the guide foot. Because when you epoxy your wraps, if you put too much epoxy on there or your thread is too close to these guide feet, your epoxy is going to want to climb up onto these, and you don't want that. So we'll go ahead and stop right there.